Hi, everybody. It's Julia, your trusted travel expert, helping you find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And this week, I am kind of taking a departure a little bit, and it's not so much focused on the cultural je ne sais quoi or certain something about a destination. This time, I want to give you a little review of my cruise, my ocean cruise on Royal Caribbean's Mariner of the Sea. Now, full disclosure, Royal Caribbean is a huge supporter of the travel advisors industry, the entire travel industry, and in an effort to help revitalize and help show that cruising is safe to do nowadays, they, provided a promotion for anyone who also supported our industry association, ASTA. And so I was able to get this cabin at a pretty deep discount, but I will still give you my honest opinions about my cruising experience. And I'm going to focus on the itinerary, the ship itself that I got to be on, the experience on that ship, and the food, of course. And so we will go ahead and get started. So my friends and I decided that we would go on this cruise together. We live all around the country and don't get to see each other often. And, they both also have busy jobs, family commitments, that kind of thing. And so when we were looking on which date we wanted and which sailing we wanted, the 3 days, the 3 night sailing seemed like they would be a little bit short. We wouldn't really get some quality time together, but the 7 nights were way too long. And the 4 night sailings were basically midweek. So that didn't work for work schedules, right? So we chose a 5 night sailing, which left on a Thursday and came back on a Monday. So people were able to sort of not take too much vacation, and we had plenty of quality time together. Now, the option that we ended up taking that was 5 nights left from Orlando, which was super good because bonus, I did a half day at Universal Studios, but you could very, very easily combine a cruise out of Port Canaveral, which is the Orlando port, with any of the theme parks in Orlando for a couple days before or after your trip. It proved to be very, very easy. It's an hour between either the Orlando airport or the parks and Port Canaveral. And we ended up taking Ubers. There are lots of shuttles, private transfers, all kinds of options. And the 5 day cruise that we ended up taking went to Royal's private island, Coco K, and also stopped in Cozumel with 2 days at sea. Now, when we originally were looking at cruises, I really wanted to try and see more of the Caribbean because I haven't really seen many islands in the Caribbean. But to see several different islands or do like island hopping, you really need to take 7 or more days, I found out. So we had 2 days at sea, which seemed like a lot to me at the time, Cozumel and the private island. So that's what our itinerary was. And it ended up working out really, really well. The private island, Coco K, I was always sort of dubious about, shall we say. Again, I like to travel for culture. I like to, meet the locals, eat the local food, really get into the nitty gritty. And so these private islands, to me, just seemed like just very commercial, very inauthentic. And I was not really, I imagined them to be crowded and hot, and I really wasn't looking forward to it. But we did it right, and it was fabulous. We rented one of the floating cabanas, which is extravagant. It is the most expensive option on Coco K. You certainly don't need to even buy anything. You can just walk off the ship and grab a beach chair and enjoy yourself to your heart's content because your ship credit, your beverage package, applies on the island, which is helpful. But we went a little fancy and we got the floating cabana, which was spectacular. It had a slide. It had this little trampoline kind of area, plenty of lounging space, we had 2 different dining areas. We had our appetizers by our couch on our coffee table in the shade, and then we had our lunch in full sun on the dining table. Umbrellas. The cabin attendant comes about every 15 minutes. We had a shower if we wanted to rinse off. We had a mini bar. We had a sink. It was spectacular. It was so great. And we really just hung out there the whole time. And you had that beautiful blue water from the Bahamas. There was a beach right behind us. If we wanted to hang out and stroll along the beach, we could have. We were in the beach club floating cabanas, and the beach club itself is also an option that's much less expensive, and that also would be wonderful because you have this beautiful infinity pool. It's quiet. All those attendants are roaming around. You had cabanas, beach chairs, bolly beds, all different kinds of. And I mean, so we just stayed there at Coco K at our cabana the entire day, and it was fabulous. But as we walked on the way to the cabana and we walked a different way back across the island to get back on the boat at the end of the day, I mean, there is so much to do on the island that even if you cruised all the time, I feel like you could have a different island, private island experience every single time you went. I mean, there was a water park, there was a pool with like floating chairs, there was a full-on restaurant. There were different beach areas, chill beach, family beach, just all kinds of options. It was really impressive. They even had a little marketplace. We didn't end up doing any shopping, so I don't know what the goods for sale there are. But they had a cute little sort of locally looking market like you would see on any Bahamian island, shall we say. And it was still the Bahamas, so it was still beautiful, and it was perfect weather, and like I said, that beautiful blue water. So Coco K really impressed me and surprised me. Now, Cozumel was our other port of call, and that proved to be a little bit more logistically challenging than I expected. Because Cozumel, if you're not familiar, is an island off the coast of Mexico, off the coast of like Playa del Carmen, Riviera Maya. And there's really not that much on the island. I mean, it does have like a little town, and it's got lots of beach clubs. That's kind of the thing to do, is go to a beach club. And originally I was thinking that me and my other friend that were certified scuba divers would do a dive in the morning, and then we would meet up with our other friends to do something, wander, a city tour of Cozumel or a food tour and a beach club, something like that. But we ended up deciding that we wanted to go all the way across to the mainland to do some cenotes, because none of us had ever done cenotes before, and they look amazing. And cenotes are like sort of natural sinkholes, natural springs. It's fresh water, either runoff or maybe spring fed, but I think runoff. And a lot of times they'll go like underground or through caves, and they're just always, all the pictures I've ever seen have been beautiful. So we did that, and that entailed us getting off the ship first thing in the morning, like 7 something in the morning, taking a ferry over from Cozumel to Playa del Carmen, which was about 45 minutes, and it was not like smooth going, so motion sickness could come into play big time. And then from Playa del Carmen, all the excursions took buses in whichever. I mean, you could have gone to Chichen Itza, you could have gone into a different ruin. There are all kinds of things to do from Playa del Carmen. Our ride down to the cenote place that we went was about an hour, 45 minutes or something like that. So we had about an hour and a half, 2 hours of just transport between the boat and our activity. Then we ended up having plenty of time. We saw 4 different cenotes and, ate some lunch, and we actually did get to eat lunch in Cozumel back by the ferry. So we had plenty of time, but it ended up being a full day. Like, we got back to the ship, I think around 5 p.m. and we're pretty exhausted. Then we also had 2 days at sea, and I was really worried about those beforehand, thinking that they would be kind of boring, or what on earth do you do? We had a blast. I mean, it helps that I traveled with friends, because we, had spa treatments, and we, did some exercise, some more than others. We lounged by the pools or overlooking the pools. There was trivia, there were games, bingo, like there was stuff going on all day long. I mean, just crazy amounts of stuff, because it's such a huge ship, and so there's so much going on the days at sea that, I mean, it's really not even an issue to entertain yourself. There's tons to do. Plus, that's like the really quality time that you spend with the people that you're traveling with, because it's not so rushed, and it's however you want to structure your day. Do you want to sleep in and just grab a coffee to go, on your way to the pool, or do you want to, get up early and have a full on breakfast at, the Windjammer? It's up to you. So it ended up being really good, the itinerary. So I've already mentioned it briefly, but let's talk about the ship. I was on the Mariner of the Seas, which is not their highest class ship. That means it's not the biggest ship, nor is it the newest ship. The Mariner, I don't remember when it was renovated. I think probably early 2000s, mid 2000s, maybe 2010s. But it is a little older, I will say. It was fine. It was totally fine, but it is not the uber fancy Oasis class ships with all the bells and whistles. It also, we were lucky in that it normally capacity is about 4,000 passengers on that ship, and we were about half capacity, just probably because of the, Omicron surge over Christmas and, just people being nervous. And also just maybe cruising isn't quite all the way back, or I don't know what it was. But I will say that, once again, I've experienced this several times over traveling sort of post-pandemic or during the pandemic, is that traveling at lower capacities is really nice, because there were definitely times where, the ship did feel a little crowded. If we had wanted full sun by the pool all day, every day, we would have had to go pretty early to get chairs, 3 or 4 chairs together in the sun by one of the pools. There were a couple different pools, like a big main pool deck with a bunch of pools, and then a quieter adult only pool on the pool deck. So one of our days at sea, we sort of wandered out of the pool late, and there weren't 3 chairs together. So we ended up sitting somewhere else. I mean, there was plenty of room. I won't say that the ship was crowded ever at all. But that was one thing that does worry me about those huge ships on capacity. So if you're a pool fiend and you're gonna just sit by the pool the whole day, keep that in mind. Otherwise, the ship, I mean, it had lots of bells and whistles. Like I said, it didn't have everything, but I mean, it had a slide, it had a climbing wall, it had a tennis court, basketball court kind of situation. They had classes all day long. It had a nice gym and a spa, tons of food and restaurants and lounges and all that all over the place. So it had everything. And some of them are quite nice and look brand new. But like our room, for example, we were on the lower floor, 6th floor at the back of the ship, which that was fine. But the room decor was dated, like it needed to be updated. But my friend who worked for Royal, he had a junior suite, because we just had a normal regular twin cabin. It did have a balcony, and it had a big balcony because it was on the back of the ship. But it wasn't like an interior cabin, which don't ever do that. Just don't do that to yourself. You want that balcony, even if it's just for brief, steps outside. But my friends were up on the 11th floor, total opposite end of the ship, and they had a junior suite that had been renovated recently. It was very nice. It was huge. They had a bathtub, they had a walk-in closet, they had a really nice balcony as well. So, the cabins do range. And so if you are picky about your cabin and what sort of amenities you get in your cabin, you definitely want to pay attention. Again, because I got this on a discount, I wasn't going to complain or fuss about my cabin much. It was perfectly fine. It had tons of storage. It was plenty of room. We had our 2 beds and then a little sofa and a whole desk area. So it was plenty big enough. It just was a little dated. That's fine. But yeah, the other thing that I really liked about this ship is I think this was one of the first ships that they introduced the whole, what do they call it? Boardwalk kind of interior atrium concept. And so there are some interior cabins that like have windows overlooking an open air atrium, where like kind of the bottom floor of it, the 5th floor, was like Main Street, and so on the 5th floor they had, it was open all the way up to the top of the ship, not to the fresh air on this ship. I think the newer ones do, but it had a sports bar, it had a tiki bar, it had a quick service cafe where like, they serve pizza late at night, and it had shops and all kinds of stuff like that. You could get ice cream all day long. So that I forget why I can't think of the name of it, but that was a really fun area where we basically, because my friend and I were on the opposite end of the ship, we walked down that a lot. It had a casino with tons of slots and nice tables. We spent some time in the casino. It actually did have an ice skating rink, which we never quite could get into. It had an escape room, which again, we weren't able to get reservations for in time. It had like lounges with live music. It had a theater. It had small lounges, like a little whiskey bar with a guitarist every night. I mean, there were tons of places to eat and drink, especially to drink. So those were never crowded. Those were fun, and they were plentiful. So that was part of what made it such a fun trip. Okay, finally, let's talk about the food and the dining because again, this is an area that I was a little concerned about going into it. And I will say that there are some nuances and complications that I didn't really get or didn't understand well enough, I think, before we boarded. So if you do not get a dining package, you have basically the main dining room and the buffet, which are the buffet is at the back of the ship up at the top, and the main dining is at the front of the ship down at the bottom. And that's basically where you can eat for free, along with that quick service cafe kind of thing I mentioned. But everything else, all the specialty restaurants, are an upcharge of some sort, and it's different. So like there's a Johnny Rockets and a Playmakers Bar and Grill, like the sports bar and a Johnny Rockets burger joint. They were only like $10 extra if you wanted to have a meal there. But if you wanted to eat at like the Jamie's Italian Kitchen or Chops, or have like a chef's meal, those were differing upcharges. And so looking back on it, I think I probably wish I had gotten an unlimited dining, just because like the way I react is I'm like, I already paid for this. Why do I have to pay for more food? When it's just like the little sports bar on the fifth floor. I understand that Chops, where you're getting, really nice fillets, really high quality food, or the Italian, that sure, I understand that that's, an extra $20 or $50 or whatever it is to dine there. But I don't know, the $10 upcharges were bothersome to me. And I will say that the main dining room, while the menu wasn't super inspiring, the food was really good. Like we had escargot that were great, French onion soup that were great, steaks and pastas and chicken and stuff like that. I would say that they were stronger on appetizers than mains. Desserts were very good. Chef's Table was like a 6-course tasting menu. And that was a really lovely experience because they set you up on one of the like a big dining table that kind of overlooks the main dining room. And it was beautiful. And it was, with pairings, and it was very high quality and very, very nice food. Like I said, Chops was delicious. Oh my God, we ate our faces off. And, it was a really nice steakhouse, I would say. And it was very good. Lunch was we ate lunch every day that we were on the ship at Windjammers, which was their buffet, which, like I said, is on the back of the boat. And that was like massive. It wasn't just like, oh, the buffet today is Mexican. Get your Mexican food. No, they had all different kinds of hot food, cold food, fresh, sandwiches, salads, nachos one day. They had the biggest apple pie I've ever seen in my life one day. The desserts at Windjammers were sort of like, meh, they were okay. But Windjammers had a little bit of everything. And it was, they do have extra precautions in place still. First of all, you have to wear a mask, obviously, when you're, wandering around the buffet. But the staff serves you. So you can walk along the different stations and say, okay, I want this and I want that. And the staff serves it to you. So, not everybody's not all up in the food, which is helpful. So to sum it up, even though I'm not a cruising person, it's not ever probably going to be my number one choice. And I still am not an expert in all of the nuances of cruising. As you heard, I didn't understand cabin placement, and I didn't understand dining plan and all that. I did get the beverage package, which I have learned the beverage package is key. Unless you're kind of not much of a drinker and you aren't going to have anything too much, the drink package is worth it. It is. Just go with me on that. But for a friend, for what I was going for is just some time away with some friends that I don't get to see much. It was perfect. It was a fantastic experience. We had a blast. We laughed a ton. It's just very easy. You get on, you unpack, and you basically carry your little ship cart around and eat and drink more or less whatever you want and get entertained from different games to casino to theater. It just is amazing what all they can pack onto this one ship. And the whole thing with like being with thousands of people, yeah, I hate that too. I hate the feeling of that, the thought of that. But really, I don't know how it happened, but both for check in and check out, we had no lines, no crowds, no people around us. So they've done a really good job of spacing everyone out with that. And you don't have to do this stupid muster drill anymore. It's all online, and you just kind of check in, at some point at your leisure. So you don't have to stand around in your, life jacket or, in crowds of people anymore. Really like the bars and restaurants, they're never crowded. Like it was half capacity, but I never felt that I was with thousands of people. I mean, the only time I'd say I sort of slightly felt like that was not even getting off at, I mean, kind of getting off at Coco K, but not even, because you can just walk off a ship whenever you want. So not really even that, but maybe getting off at Cozumel, because they load everyone that's taking an excursion, that's taking a ferry to a morning excursion over on the mainland. They kind of gather everyone together in the theater, and then we sort of have to, single file line onto the ferry. So, that was the only time I sort of felt like I was in like a herd. But we all split off, and my excursion was only, 10 or 15 people. It really wasn't bad at all. So overall, I really had a great experience. I highly recommend Royal. I think that they are great if you've got a variety of needs and ages and things like that. Like they had a kids club that of course we didn't even like look at, but it's really got a lot for a lot of people. And if you just want an easy, fun vacation, there's nothing wrong with that. So that's it for this week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.